All right,
Okay,
so
awesome.
welcome
Good to see
everybody.
everyone here.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I know some of us are joining us from the East Coast, so even a bigger thank you to you, because I know it's late for you guys, but it's really special to have all of you with us tonight. This is actually a special webinar for us. It's a little bit of a different format than we normally do, and there's a reason for that. Actually, a couple reasons. So this is a really special week for us for two reasons, one on both sides of this webinar date. So yesterday was the 6-year anniversary of Kirsten, who's my daughter, and Bri, Jordann, and Kelly's good friend. It's the anniversary of her passing. And tomorrow is the 5-year anniversary of us having a launch party and announcing our intent to start the organization Be Present. So it really is a special week. It's hard to believe it's been 6 years for Kirsten and 5 years for the organization, but it's been such an amazing journey. And every day we meet new wonderful people, and it's such, the AYA population is just awesome. So just, every day is a good day, and we're just excited to be part of it. So tonight is really, even though it's a special kind of webinar, we still want to share with the audience the experience of the young adult cancer journey. And so tonight it's all about the social support from the friend perspective. And so Bri, Jordann, and Kelly are going to have a chance to introduce themselves here in just a second, but all of them are co-founders of the Be Present organization. And all of them kind of had a relationship with Kirsten that was just slightly different. And I'll talk a little bit about that, which brings a unique take on the experience as well. But before we start, so I'm Abby Westerman. For those of you who are watching this afterwards, don't know me. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of Be Present. And we are all about improving social support. It grew out of Kirsten's experience. And really recognizing that everybody struggles with how to support someone that they love after a cancer diagnosis. And so we're just all about trying to help bring some information, reduce the fear, make it a little bit more of an approachable thing to do, because at the end of the day, it's super important to be present for your friends. It has a huge impact. We may not be able to change the end, but we can certainly change the journey. And that's really what we're all about. So we raise awareness before a diagnosis, and then after a diagnosis, provide the tools and resources to make sure that the supporters have what they need, so the cancer patients and survivors have what they need along the way in terms of support. They feel connected and they feel supported. So with that, one other thing, if you want to add any questions or comments, please feel free to do so in the chat. And the session is being recorded, so we will send you a link afterwards if you wanted to rewatch or share with your friends. So feel free to do all of those things. So with that, we're going to get started. So again, Bri, Jordann, and Kelly were all part of the experience as supportive friends. And they all were in college, actually, when Kirsten's diagnosis happened. They were all, I think, juniors in college. And so what we're going to talk about tonight is basically 3 different things. The first is the experience as supportive friends. And then we're going to talk a little bit about, after Kirsten passed away, that whole experience. And then just at the end, wrap up with some helpful tips and strategies and some things to maybe avoid or to do that were successful strategies for them, and what led to the founding of the organization. So I'm going to start it off with everybody introducing themselves. So Kelly, we're going to kick it off with you.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this special occasion. My name's Kelly, and currently I'm the treasurer for Be Present. And Kirsten and I started our friendship from age 6, believe it or not. So ever since they moved here, Kirsten and I were immediately friends in 1st grade, and pretty much from then we're inseparable and grew up together. all the way through high school. We ended up transferring schools together too. And then we went our separate ways for college, but we were still only like an hour to 2 hours away from each other. So we got to see each other often as well. But yeah, that's me.
Thanks, Kelly. Bri, how about you?
Hi, everyone. Again, thanks so much for joining us. My name is Brianna Matias. I'm one of the co-founders of Be Present, and I am from San Diego, which is where Kirsten and I met. We met a little later in life. We met in high school, not in, was it elementary school, Kelly? Not that young, but we met in high school, but it felt like, just a forever friendship. And then we went also like separate ways for college and did a long distance best friendship. I stayed in San Diego at UCSD, and then she went to San Jose State, and so we just kind of continue to be best friends over the distance. And now I'm still in San Diego, and yeah.
Thanks, Bri.
Awesome.
Right. Last but not least, Jordann.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's beautiful to spend this Wednesday evening with you. If you're listening to the replay, wherever you are in the world, great to have you here. I'm Jordann Phillips. I'm a co-founder and board chair of Be Present now. And I met Kirsten in college through Brianna. And so Brianna kind of facilitated, or Bri now. So I always go back to calling you Brianna from like back in the day, one of my longest standing friendships. And so through high school, I knew of Kirsten, but it was really in college, and we'll get into that connection in a little bit. But immediately just gravitated towards Kirsten and her energy, and was just really, really grateful for the opportunity to be one of her friends during what became one of the most difficult times for all of us, and now Be Present resulted out of it. So thanks y'all for being here.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, ladies. Okay, so we're going to dive right into it. So like I mentioned, the first part of the conversation is really about finding out about Kirsten's cancer diagnosis. And so for each of you, and I just really want this to be a conversation, but we'll start off with Kelly since you kind of knew Kirsten the longest, but maybe talk a little bit about, how you found out about Kirsten's diagnosis, and then just maybe your response and some of the things that you tried to do in terms of resolving how you were going to be supportive for this person that now had cancer. And then, just feel free to talk about maybe some of the challenges or experiences or things that you really stick out in your mind as experiences along the way.
Yeah. Okay. So it's so crazy to think that it's been like 6 years now, but I remember the exact spot that I was in when I found out that Kirsten was diagnosed with cancer. I think I was at La Jolla Shores, and she sent me like a text that was kind of weird or like off. And then I like called her immediately, and she told me, and it was just very surreal and like shocking. Like to me, it's always been like, is this real life? Like, how could something so devastating be happening to someone so close to you? Like, I don't know. For me, I'd been fortunate to not really have that experience previously. So having one of your closest friends tell you something that, it's kind of shocking, and you don't really know what to think. I feel like I was kind of numb, and then after processing it for a little bit, just like so many questions going through my mind, like, what does this mean? Like, what is prognosis? Like most people you hear about, will live through their cancer treatment and everything. And so just so many unknown answers. And I think that was like the scariest part too. And then just like trying to stay positive throughout the whole thing, and wondering how we're going to navigate this, when we're in school, and what does that look like for Kirsten, and what does that look like for me and all of our friends as well. So I think, some of the challenges were just processing that kind of, that kind of new knowledge and the onset of the cancer. But yeah, that was for me the most impactful moment in my life, I would say, so far.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can imagine, getting, they say to never share any information like this over text. And I think this is my first opportunity to really apologize to everybody here and to people that are in the audience that I know Kirsten as well. I think that's the one thing for me that I regret the most. And it's just something that happens, but notifying people by text or by email is pretty much how I did it, because I was a wreck when I was up at the hospital with Kirsten and figuring out how I was supposed to share this new news with everybody. And I know it was hard for everybody to like get this text and like, what are you talking about? This, are you kidding me? But it was the only way that I could handle it at the time. And so I know Kirsten, like you just said, texted you, but I do distinctly remember texting Bri because I was at the hospital. She was actually in getting her prep for the port that was going to be installed, and I was in the waiting room, and I go, Bri has, I had to tell Bri. I wasn't sure how else she was going to find out, and so Bri, I guess that's a lead into kind of where you were at when you got the news and how you felt about it, and kind of some of the thoughts after that.
I did find out over text. This is true. No, but I get it. I don't think I mean, I know obviously it's not the most ideal way to find out, but I think that wasn't like what was on my mind, is like, how am I finding this out over text? It was more just like, is this real? Like, is like what? Like obviously like Abby wouldn't lie. Like I knew it was real, but like it didn't feel real. And I do remember I was at home, I was watching a movie, like I remember the moment, like I can picture it. And yeah, it's definitely like just one of those things that never leaves you. Like it like sticks with you forever. Um, and so yeah, I remember the moment. I think my feelings, first of all, it really was like shock. Like, is this real? Like, no way. Like, what? I think the second emotion was just like wanting to know like everything, like what kind, like what's going on, like what is like wanting to consult Dr. Google and like find out as much information as I possibly could, just because that was kind of like my way of processing. But honestly, I don't really think even after that moment that, and like we'll get into more like the support of Kirsten, but I really don't think it even like really hit me until I saw Kirsten the first time. Like it's still like I think I was just in shock for a while and like disbelief, and I really don't think I like fully understood like what that meant until like I saw Kirsten, because it just was like, a movie you watch. Like, no way.
Yeah. Yeah, and she definitely, I think she was very sick. By the time she got in the hospital, she was very sick. So I think for everybody, it definitely a shock, and probably the moment of reality check right there when you saw her for the first time. So Jordann, how about you?
Yeah, so I found out through Brianna because it got to the point where Bri was visiting Kirsten on the weekends, pretty much every weekend. I remember you were driving up from San Francisco or San Diego up to the Bay Area. And I just remember thinking, well, one, like, what is Bri doing? But two, it was so admirable from my vantage point that I was like, how do I get involved? How do I support Brianna as she's going through this as one of Brianna's best friends? And so the conversation, around Kirsten's diagnosis initially was Bri letting me know. And then I think from somebody who had previously hung out with Kirsten, honestly, one time prior to that moment, it was really, how do I support Brianna as she's kind of taking this on and really wanting to be a great friend and a supporter. But really, from an outsider's perspective, like, how do I at least help at a basic level? And so I don't think the news, to me, I have a very different perspective because it wasn't so jolting and so shocking because I was a little bit further removed from it. Obviously still incredibly heartbreaking, but like my heart was broken for Bri and for Kirsten's family and friends and like a group of people that I hadn't yet met. Like I didn't know you. So you always hear that either you yourself are impacted immediately by somebody who's gone through cancer. And then I became obviously very invested in Kirsten's story, and we'll get into that and the support of it, and fell absolutely in love with her. But at that time, I hadn't been affected myself. And so it was really, I was 3 people removed. And yeah, it was heartbreaking nonetheless, but definitely different.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about, the support. And so I know it's a process, right? I think everybody's kind of the same. You do your homework, you try to figure out what's going on, or at least try to understand as much as you can. We were all sort of in that same boat of trying to educate ourselves as best we could. But I think the part that was hard was, okay, so what do I do with all this information? What does it mean? How can I help? What is going to be important to her? And because she was in the hospital the entire time, it's intimidating going to the hospital, especially, there's a lot of scary sights and sounds and serious conversations that are happening either in the room or in the hallway or whatever. And so it really, I think for a young adult that has not been exposed to something like this, even I had never been exposed as an adult and a parent, I had really never been exposed to something like this. So I can only imagine for all of you, as you were trying to navigate through this, how challenging it must have been. So Kelly, we'll start with you again. Talk a little bit just about how you sort of figured out what made sense for helping Kirsten out. How did you sort of figure out the things that you could do to make her feel better? And what did you struggle with? I know communication, and sometimes, it feels awkward or you don't know what to say. Let's talk a little bit about that for each of you guys.
Yeah. I think at first, even though like Kirsten being my best friend since we were so young, I think at first it's still like, what's appropriate to say? Like, I don't want to come across being like insensitive or not caring. Like, what questions do I ask? And like, how can I be there for her? And I think that one of the most difficult things for all of us too was the fact that like we were all in our junior years of college, like Abby had said, and we were all in kind of different places. And so it's like Kirsten was up in like San Jose in the Bay Area getting treatment. So fortunately for me, it was like relatively close. But I'm like, what does that look like? And how can I support her? So I definitely took trips down there and would get to hang out with her and visit her. Some of the places were like somewhat strict on their like policies, but we still got to hang out and then talk on the phone a lot, of course, and text throughout our days and everything. And then I just realized that I just need to treat Kirsten like Kirsten. Like, she's still Kirsten. She still has her amazing sense of humor and a way of making every like hospital worker that entered her room laugh. But yeah, so that would include like, I brought her like fuzzy blankets and socks, and like we would get ice cream and like kind of do all of her favorite things. And we would still talk and joke around like when we were together talking on the phone about like anything a typical junior or college student would. So life kind of resumed as normal. And so I think with some of the struggles that come with that is just that, how do you navigate that? And for me personally, I was probably not as much aware of like the seriousness and the extent of her cancer, because I feel like you see a lot of times, or you hear a lot of times like, oh, well, they'll get their treatment and like, yeah, it sucks going through this treatment and it does a lot of horrible things for your body, but like they get through it and she'll be fine. And like, she's young, she's going to be okay. Like, it never really crossed my mind what could happen. So I think the struggles for me was maybe like being a even better supporter, like during that time, and like navigating like being in school and like how I kind of prioritized, like I should probably have, looking hindsight, I'll be real vulnerable with you guys, but like I should have gone and visited her more, and like I should have done more looking back on the things. But yeah, so I think that those were some of the biggest struggles being like a young adult. You're like, I have my life here in college, but like also my best friend is here, and how can I be with her and like do these things too?
Yeah, and I think that's as we've been through the last 5 years and heard other people's stories, I think that's a very normal story, Kelly. And I know that it's hard to not have regrets. I think we all probably have some regrets as we look in hindsight, but it is hard. I mean, at that stage, you have your own priorities. Your life cannot stop because somebody is sick. And so that's where with Be Present too, what we're trying to do is help more people kind of share the experience and the support so that everybody feels like they're doing their part, but it's not, they're not stopping their own lives in order to support somebody else. And obviously there's days when she was probably perfectly okay with being by herself or not feeling well and all of that. But yeah, I think, just knowing what to do or say, I know that she always appreciated everybody that showed up and the time that people gave her, and I think recognized the awkwardness of having to come to the hospital and all that. Thanks for sharing that, Kelly. So Bri,
Yeah.
we'll let you check in next here.
Yeah, I mean, I had no clue what to do at first. And for me, the hospital isn't awkward. Like I interned in hospitals, so it's kind of like a weirdly like comforting place for me. But like I think that is like exactly why I didn't know like how to be a supporter, because like I think like I pretty much just like berated Kirsten at first of like all the details, like tell me everything, like what are these levels, like what's going on, like do you need water, do you need ice, like do you need another blanket, like really like just not like fun friend. And I really think that Kirsten, honestly, like not feeling well, like, down in the dumps, like really, she was the one that taught me how to be a supporter, because then she would make some like awfully inappropriate joke. And I would be like, okay, that's Kirsten again. And like, remember like what our friendship was. And I think I needed, unfortunately, like knowing now, like if I hadn't realized, like just be like the relationship you already had with them, I think I would have approached it differently. But like, luckily for me, Kirsten like brought that out and like was able to, let me like just be real and be normal with Kirsten and like do what we normally did. Which usually was like make stupid jokes, look at social media, watch things, and eat a lot of food. So I think most of the times I hung out with Kirsten, it did involve food when it could, when she was able to eat and like not on a restricted diet. So that was definitely something that helped. But I think going into it, like I really had no clue what to do. I Googled as like literally Google failed me. I Googled as much as I could, like how to support your friend, what to bring them in the hospital, because they have all these rules about certain floors, you can't bring certain things. Just like what does someone who's going through cancer want and need, and like what's helpful to say. Um, and really just like learning that like you can't fix the problem, but like you can just be there and like be your normal self with that person. I had to learn over time. Like I definitely did not show up that way. And I also would like, piggyback off what Kel said, that, I think looking back, you always wish that you visited more. And a lot of times, like as like a really busy college student or wherever you're at in your life, and for all of us, we were in college, school and work and whatnot. But really, when you look back, like you realize like you could have made more space, you could have made more time. And a lot of times it's like realizing that you don't need to be perfect to show up. Like, oh, I'm in such a bad mood. I have all these things to do. I'm stressed. I'm going to be the worst supporter. Like, I'm not going to be able to not cry or like whatever it is. And then realizing like, no, if you just show up and like be there, even for an hour, it would have, been really special to that person. So I think definitely I always wish that I was there more.
One of my favorite things that we say consistently at Be Present is be present, not perfect. And I think that goes to that. I feel like my experience with Kirsten talking about like wanting to normalize that person's life still, right? Wanting to still talk with them like they're just your friends. That we often talk about cancer. It's like you get the diagnosis and then you have this wall up and it immediately goes up because you're trying to say the right thing or do the right thing or bring the right thing. And then you stop treating them like they're just a normal human being, and your friend didn't change. Like your friend didn't go away or your family member didn't go away. They still like the same stuff. They still have the same background. And the really cool thing from my perspective that I brought in, so basically what happened is when Kirsten moved from the Bay Area and the children's hospital up there and became treated down at Stanford to Rady's, there we go. At Rady Children's Hospital, I was able to go visit Kirsten for the first time, being local to San Diego, and I was able to build a friendship with her from the ground up. And so because I didn't know Kirsten before diagnosis, really that gave me an opportunity to treat her just like a normal friend and ask her about what she liked to do and ask her about boys that she's dated and all the fun topics and literally get to know this person. And I felt like that was the coolest opportunity because I was treating her like she was a normal friend because I didn't have any other frame of reference. Like this was my new friend. And that was really beautiful. And so I think I had like, that's kind of what I brought initially to the support kind of squad system. And then after, like, Kirsten became one of my most favorite people ever because of her sense of humor and just like incredible, just so incredible. I can't talk about it. I'll start crying. I started bringing her a lot of Beanie Boos. Every time I'd visit, I would bring a new like stuffed animal Beanie Boo, if y'all are familiar with those. I'm pretty sure she hated them like from the beginning, but she just let me do it because it was my thing where I was like, I'm going to try to make you smile. But that being said is like everyone has their own way of supporting, their own thing that they bring, their own kind of like unique angle that feels really authentic and organic to both of the people. And it doesn't have to look the same, and it won't look the same because your relationship with whoever you're supporting is dramatically different from that of somebody else.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And you're right. We do talk about that a lot, is to show up as your authentic self, right? Because that's really who that person's relying on. You. They don't want the different person that now is, trying to act differently or hold back things or whatever. They want the person to be who they are. And if, poking fun at Kirsten was what you were good at, then you should keep poking fun at Kirsten because that's what she wants from you, right? Or that's what
you're talking about. Andrew here. Are you alluding to
Andrew? But I think
Kirsten, for those of y'all who are listening, Kirsten's older brother.
Yeah. But I just think, she appreciated, and I've heard other people say the same thing where, to an outsider, they might be like, wow, you're being really rude to that person who now has cancer. And it's like, that's what they want. If I wasn't doing that, they would be more frustrated with me than by me, poking fun or being silly or goofy or whatever. And so, yeah, and I know that there was a lot of downtime where Kirsten was, in the room by herself and was able to, for good or for bad, see what was going on with social media and keeping up. But that's really, I think, what she wanted to do was just sort of stay in touch with everybody. And I think the thing that she struggled with is that she lost herself over time too, right? So by not being able to go out and have experiences and doing things with friends, that's where that's where the conversations come from, right? And the new activities and things you learn, you share those together. And she really lost herself in the experience and lost her identity, I think, towards the end. And I know that was really deflating for her. And I think one of the biggest struggles is to not have those conversations. I mean, she really thrived off of being around people. And so, like I say, I know everybody struggles with I should have been there more. And yes, we all should have been there more. But I think she also, I know there were times where people showed up that it made the difference between her just wanting to completely give up and her wanting to, fight for another day. And so, again, it's about trying to figure out how to not get in our own way at the end of the day. And sometimes that's just really hard to do. You want it to be a great experience. You want everything to go off so that they feel better at the end of the day, when the reality is that just by you connecting, whether it's sending them a text or calling them or being in the room with them or watching with you or whatever, all of those things matter and make a difference. And the cumulative effect is definitely something that that really does add up and makes a difference in the long run. I had one kind of fun, silly question in terms of the humor thing, because that was a huge coping mechanism for her. And it probably helped you guys too, right? Sometimes it's feels super serious or super awkward, and she would just slice right through it with one of her jokes. So I guess a question to all of you, and if none of you have an answer, that's okay, we'll move on. But I was just wondering if there was something that you remember from, Kirsten's joking around or the humor that she had that really made a difference for you to kind of help you continue to be or find your way as a supporter yourself.
I mean, kind of like what I said earlier, I think like Kirsten's humor really like brought me like, grounded me, like brought me back to like, wait, like this is like, we're still best friends. Like, yes, the circumstances are different, but like we should talk to each other like we're still best friends. And like really allowed me to, because I think Kelly was mentioning it earlier, like you don't want to be insensitive. You don't know what's going to hit right and what's not. And it kind of allowed me to just like try to be normal and then know that like, if I messed up, like you apologize and like you move on. For Kirsten, like it wasn't really an issue because she really had way more of a sense of humor than me always. Like she always was the funnier one. So really my jokes, I didn't really have to worry, but I think it allowed me to really like feel like this is our normal friendship again. And just make me feel comfortable, which really was not her job to do. But she really did do that for me.
Yeah, and we actually hear that a lot too, where sometimes the patient does feel like they're always responsible for making everybody in the room feel comfortable when technically it was supposed to be the other way around. But and I know sometimes it can feel like a heavy weight for that person. But like you say, there's definitely strategies to help out with that. And I think from a supporter perspective, just recognizing that sometimes it does feel like work for the patient in the room and the survivor in the room, and just to think about how to make it feel less like that and let them know that you don't, you're willing to kind of lean into this and figure it out together, I think is, what really helps there. Okay, so in the interest of time, I wanted to go ahead and shift gears. And this is going to be a hard topic, and honestly, it's probably something that we haven't really had a chance to talk about as a group yet. And that is what happened with Kirsten when she was down in San Diego. So she had finished treatment. For those that don't know the Kirsten's whole story, so she'd finished treatment, gotten through everything, rang the bell, was doing great, was actually at home, and about a week later, she had some kind of weird pains and other things, complications, and went back into the hospital. And she was there for about a week, and things were looking like, this is just going to be another speed bump in the road, and then she was going to be back home and ready to move forward with all of her plans and moving to a different school and all that kind of stuff. And I think for all of us, and again, back to the list of regrets, here I go down the list, but this was another one where I think we were all just taken by surprise. None of us, I mean, we all knew that there was a complication, but none of us knew where it was headed. I mean, I was going back to work, and I got a call from her saying, "Hey, when are you coming in? Because I haven't been feeling well, and I couldn't sleep all night." And I came in, and that was kind of like the last day that we were able to really even, talk to her. Things just went sideways unexpectedly. And so round two of all of that, like I say, I think we all knew that there was some complications, and it was over a holiday weekend, and so people were busy and had other plans and everything. And so we're going to ease into this topic. So I'm going to start with you, Bri, because I know you were down in San Diego. You were able to come visit her. She was actually in the ICU by the time this all kind of escalated, and so I was just going to let you just have a moment to share whatever you feel comfortable sharing. Like I said, I know this is the topic that none of us have really had a chance to talk about too much, but.
Yeah, so I want to say it was the 13th, the day before Valentine's Day, I believe, that I saw her when she was in an induced coma, like in between, like she had like surgery the next day, I believe. And honestly, in that moment, like it was a little scary because she was in an induced coma, but at the same time, like I I thought it was going to be like kind of like routine, I guess. Like I wasn't expecting the surgery to not go well. And so it really, like looking back, I wish like I, had maybe said some more things. But during that time, I really hung out with her and like listened to EDM music on my phone with her, like a one way conversation, of course. But like I literally was joking with Kirsten about like us both being single on Valentine's Day, something that like normally we would joke about. And really just like a very casual hangout, honestly. um really thinking I was going out of town the next day, so really thinking like when I got back from being out of town, like we'd hang out again, like she'd be out of surgery recovering, and like it sucked, she'd be in the hospital to recover, but like we'd get through it again, like we had been the last 7 months or so. So yeah, I really unfortunately like didn't understand like this could be the last time I was seeing her. Um, so yeah, that was kind of my like literally my last time hanging out with her. It was very casual, pretty lighthearted, a little scary just because of the circumstance. Like it's I can't talk to her, but I could still feel her and hold her hand and like, feel her warmth. So like it felt also like, you know, s- almost like some of the times that she was like sleeping and like resting in the hospital while I was just hanging out there. So I didn't really truly like see it as like that last time for us.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Kelly, I think you were still up at school, right? When this was kind of escalating to.
Yeah, so over, like you had mentioned before, Abby, so Kirsten was like doing really well and she had rang her bell, and this was right around the holidays. And so I was like, sweet, like she's on the up and up. Like, of course, like we're still gonna see each other and like resume normal activities, like hopefully sooner rather than later. But fortunately, I was home during that winter break period. And so I remember there was a brief point where Kirsten convinced them to let her leave the hospital for a little bit. And so during that time, we drove to Balboa Park, which is like one of our favorite spots to go to. It's just this like super beautiful park that just has this great feeling about it, down in San Diego, if you're not familiar with it. But they have this like Japanese friendship garden, which we have never looked at before, but we were like, what is this? Maybe we should just go walk through it. So we walked through this friendship garden, and it was like beautiful grounds, all these wonderful flowers and plants and everything that just like really makes you think about how like precious life is. And I remember like forcing Kirsten to take selfies with me, and she was hating every moment. But that was the last time that I got to hang out with Kirsten. And like what Bri said too, like I didn't think that it would be whatsoever. Like I was not having that thought cross my mind at all. I was like, yeah, she looks great, she's doing so much better. So then I had like gone back up to school, and then I remember her having the aches and pains, and then she had said she had to go to this emergency surgery. And yeah, so I was Abby and freaking out basically, like especially because like at that time I didn't really have much medical background at all, so I just also didn't know like what kind of surgery and like what does this mean and like how serious is this. But yeah, so and I'm not very good at like handling and dealing with my emotions, so I just remember like losing it during one of my classes, and like I didn't even care. Like everybody around me was probably like, what is this? What is wrong with this girl? But I like ended up going up to like my professor at the time, and I just left. But yeah, it was a very heart-wrenching experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think again,
Thank you for sharing.
yeah, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, so Kel, when did you go back up to school after winter break?
It was probably like mid-January. I think we
Okay.
usually got like a month or so off. So
Okay, because one of my favorite memories with Kirsten is she came to my birthday party, and my birthday's on January 12th. But she was like let out of the hospital. She rang the bell. She was through treatment, and her coming to my birthday party, so it would have been around January 12th, was really the last time where I was like, we hung out. And so then, she went back into the hospital and started experiencing the aches and pains. And I went to the hospital to visit her probably like once in between then and the February date. But really, really like the one kind of day of my life that I regret, I try to live with no regrets, but the one day of my life I regret was the Tuesday before her passing, because we were supposed to hang out. It was a day that was slotted. And this was when all of her other visits to the hospital, when she went back, it was like, we don't think I'm going to be here for that long. So like, no need to come. Like, it's just a routine thing. And then I'm going to go back home. And so it was like, oh, okay. Like, cool. We just hung out a couple of weeks ago. We just hung out last week. Of course, like it's going to happen again. And so I think in my head, what was going on is like, I don't need to make such an effort to go visit her in the hospital, because like, she's going to be out literally in a couple of days and it's fine. And then we can just hang out and like doing things around town. But then it increasingly came like, no, I'm really not feeling well. They want to keep me here and all of that. And so I had midterms that week, and we were supposed to hang out on a Tuesday. One of her favorite artists at the time, Rachel Platten, I think is how you say her name. Was that the song? What's the song?
The fight
Okay.
song.
Yeah, the fight song, which every time it plays, I just like burst into tears now. But Rachel Platten was at the hospital singing fight song, and Kirsten was like, please come see it with me. It'll be so fun. And of course, I prioritized studying over going to the hospital to visit. And to this day, like I get emotional and I start to get really upset at myself for making that decision. But again, like if you're listening in and you're a supporter and you're like beating yourself up, like there's you do your best and you show up when you can, and in the capacity you can show up. But all that to say that was a Tuesday, and then by the weekend I was getting texts from Bri, and so thank you, Bri. Also, side note, I don't think I ever was like able to express my gratitude for Bri being like the middle person. And so not only was Abby updating Caring Bridge, but then when all of this unfolded, there was really no time to keep track there in the capacity that the real-time updates are coming in. And so Brianna was actually updating me, and it was so shocking. Like, shocking doesn't even begin to describe the experience of thinking everything's going to be fine. And like, yeah, I can't visit you on Tuesday, but I can come on Friday, and I'm going to pack a bag and we're going to hang out all weekend and yada, yada. Like, we had plans, and I literally had my bag packed. And Friday, I'm like, not here. I'm texting her and I'm like, what time can I come? I just finished class. Like, my bag is packed. Like, I have shit in my car to do, like, and not hearing back. And I'm like, what is going on? And so then, texting Bri, and this whole just chaos of like, I feel numb. I feel helpless. Like, I'm not going to get to say goodbye to this person who I thought was okay, and it isn't now. And it's just really, really chaotic and overwhelming. And there's a lot of people and a lot of emotions. And then even the guilt that surrounds like how you're feeling. And then there's so much there. It's so complicated. Cancer is one of the most complicated things you can go through, regardless of the role you play in it.
Yeah, thanks all for sharing all of that. And like I said, I know it was super hard. And again, my way of informing everybody, unfortunately, was via text again. And people, I know all of them were basically like, wait, what? I thought she was fine. What are you talking about? And so it was gut wrenching, I think, for me too, because I mean, we were with her in the hospital, and even we didn't get a chance to really say goodbye because we didn't know what was going on. But for those that didn't get the chance to say goodbye, I just know it must be something that's just super hard. But again, to give everybody's, space and grace, as they always say, and forgiveness. I think it's just one of those things, like you were saying, Jordan, you just have to do the best you can do, and recognize that, it's not always going to work out perfect, but as long as you're, making the time when you can, I think that's the best you can do. And that's the struggle that a lot of people have, is really finding that balance. I think the other thing that's super important, and I wanted to kind of segue into the conversation about sort of after everything happened, and finding support. So one of the other things that we talk about a lot is, you're doing work as a supporter, supporting your friend, but then you also need to be able to have that support system that surrounds you, to be able to get through it, to find comfort, and to heal and recharge your own battery. And so, especially with something like this, I don't think young adults, again, it's just like with cancer, right? Young adults aren't supposed to be having to deal with cancer. They're not supposed to be having to deal with death, right? Life is good. Everything's up. Nothing but good things are happening, moving forward, whatever. And so I think it can, especially after you've lost a friend, it can become really isolating. And so I wanted to visit that for just a second, because even I experienced it as the parent, because isolation isn't just about being alone, right? It's about not being able to express yourself or talk about things that are important, to really process what's going on. And so I'm sure for every single friend that lost Kirsten, there was this sense of, what does this even mean? Again, kind of that same processing as like with the diagnosis, except it has more of a finality, obviously. But it's also about who can I even talk to about this? Nobody wants to talk about, somebody that just passed away. They changed the subject or whatever. So I just wanted to talk a little bit, because I think this is something that's going to be important and helpful for people too, is how did you cope, or what were you able to do to just sort of work through this in your own, sphere of friends and family? Kelly, I'll keep picking on you first, but go ahead.
No, you're good. But yeah, like Abby just mentioned, it's very isolating, because with my experience, like being in school and like being around similar aged people, like so many people our age at the time, like had never gone through something like this. So it is like, even like some of my closest friends, it's like hard to talk to them about it too, because it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, I'm really sorry, like that's horrible, like of course, and like they feel for you, but like no one can truly understand, like unless it's something they've been through. So I think that was really challenging, which is why I'm like so thankful for this core group right here, because I think like all of us were able to really like come together and be there for one another, and like we were all going through the same experience. So that was extremely helpful during that time. And like for me, I almost felt like this sense of guilt, like carrying out my life still, like after the fact. And I'm like, how is this like fair? So I did feel like guilty if I ever like went out to like another college party or something. And I'm like, well, this is so crappy. Like I'm here and I'm able to do this, and like Kirsten's not. And yeah, so it was just like this weird feeling to me. But yeah, so between everybody here and Be Present and like my family and my boyfriend, I think that those were my core supporters going through all of it. And I think still like to this day, it's definitely gotten a bit easier, but it's still hard to process. And like, I still don't really like to talk about it that much, because I do become super emotional. But yeah, so.
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, I like I said, I know this is the hard part of the conversation, and I appreciate you sharing. Bri, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the same. I think luckily up until that point, like I hadn't dealt with grief, like I hadn't lost anyone like close to me. And so like just figuring out like what am I supposed to do? Like how do I stop feeling this horrible feeling that sucks to feel? So just like a lot of like negative emotions. I think guilt is a huge one, like feeling like everything is just so unfair in life. Like just to be honest, like that's a big one. And the isolation thing, because you maybe you have people around you and some people get it like in this group and like maybe some of your close friends and family might get it, but like a lot of people don't. And so I just remember like walking through the grocery store and feeling like everything like moving around me and like everyone's living these lives and I am like numb. Like I'm like it's just this really surreal feeling, grief. Not something everyone at some point will deal with, but such like a horrible, horrible feeling. Um, so I think it's a process. I think it takes time. I think it's different for everyone. I think, everyone has their own way of processing it, but I really do think like time, like it just takes a lot of time to like process and like let it sink in and then try to find the light or like whatever method people use to like get through it. But yeah, for me, it just, I think of all feelings, it felt like really like unfair and isolating. And I remember like people like didn't know how to talk about it. And then like I probably didn't really myself talk about Kirsten for a while, but then when I finally would like in conversations, like bring up her name, like I saw this look on everyone like, did she just bring up Kirsten? Like, are we going there? Like, people are so awkward about it. Like, I can say her name, guys. Like, yeah, just like a very like people around me didn't know what to do and what to say.
Yeah, I would echo all of those things. I feel like everyone around me responded in different ways based on their ability to cope with the heaviness of it or their own emotions. So you know, similar to Bri, like I had never dealt with grief before, so I didn't even know how I was going to respond or react. And so everyone around me was trying to navigate accordingly. But there were people who were super emotionally closed off, and like they themselves, it was uncomfortable if I wanted to talk to them about it. And then there was the group of people who like really wanted to talk about it, like, "Are you okay? Let's talk about it." And then it was interesting at the time, I went to a private Christian university. And so the whole host of people who were like, "I want to pray for you and I want to pray for her and her family," and all of that. And it was a little overwhelming, admittedly, but like everyone responded differently. And so I just tried to orient myself accordingly and like hold space for them as they were like grieving as an extension of me almost. And also like understand how to vocalize my needs if I'm like, I don't want to talk about it right now, or I do. And it changed day to day too. Like to Kelly's point of, some days were really great and fun after, where I could smile and I could be like, wow, I really wish Kerr was here right now. And like, I'm having a great time and I wish I really miss her. And then there were the days of like just really, really, really bad, and it fluctuated. And so I think just giving yourself time and space, like Bri said, it's a long haul. But it's one of those things that it could vary every day as well. And so there's always like extra layers to work through. And I think that's a forever process. It's like healing is a forever way of being after that, because that person was really important to you. And it's a very real void, and it's okay to acknowledge that however works.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's just important, for young adults in general to appreciate that, you don't really have to solve any problem. Just being able to listen and not change the subject. I mean, we still want to be able to talk. These people are important people in our life. And so again, allowing us to be able to talk about and remember them and bring them up in a conversation without feeling like, oh my God, they just brought up the dead person again, and then everybody changes the subject. And it's actually been one of the most powerful things, I think, that was a completely unexpected consequence of Be Present. And that is that it's allowed us as a group of friends and supporters and all those that loved Kirsten to be able to talk about her in a very natural way in a conversation. I think it's still hard for people to go too far down that path, maybe sometimes, but you're right. I mean, every experience is going to be different, but I think just having people understand that after losing a friend, you really want to be able to have the opportunity. You've got to be able to work it out for yourself. And if you can never talk about it, then number one, you can't work it out. And number two, you're just going to feel completely closed off, and it's going to be difficult to move forward if you haven't had a chance to sort of work through things. And so, yeah, I feel like we've all, been able to find those people in our lives that we could lean on and were listeners for us, or just knew how to be supportive, even if we never said anything to them. They kind of figured it out. And I think that's the special part of really kind of finding out who your community is that you can trust. Just to wrap up in the last few minutes that we have here, because it's, I think, a good segue into just, be present and what we're trying to do. I think, again, at the end of the day, it's all about helping people with the struggles that we had and maybe making it a little easier for others. Obviously, we can't change what happened in the past, but it's all about trying to help each other in the future for whatever struggle they might be going through, and helping with somebody with cancer. So I think in the last few minutes, we'll do just kind of a lightning round here of everybody, just basically talking a little bit about if there's anything that you kind of took away from the experience so far, and then just what your hopes are for Be Present in general, and why the organization, I guess, is important to you. And Jordann, we'll start with you first. We'll kind of go reverse order.
Sounds good. I think I'm going to revert back to kind of what I mentioned when we started this webinar. And really the big lesson is like, be present, not perfect. You're not going to know what to say. You're not necessarily going to know what to do, what to bring, when to show up, how to show up. But like Kelly said, it's like 5 minutes could really matter to a person. And I think all of us have said that, but like, it doesn't have to be that 2-hour-long block that you carve out in your calendar. It doesn't even have to be hard. It can be you showing up for 10 minutes and saying, hey, I'm here. I just want to give you a hug. I love you, or whatever that looks like for you. Right. And so I think in my head, it always had to be made a big thing. I had to show up a certain way. I had to make sure that I was in a certain mind frame. I didn't want to spread bad energy to the healing process and all the things that I had in my head. But like, all of those things were BS stories. Like, all of those things were excuses because I was scared, because it's hard. It's hard to support somebody who's going through cancer. And there's a lot of layers that you have to break down, whether those are, very real, or like oftentimes we just make them up because of that invisible barrier that goes up when you hear someone's diagnosed. So I think all of that to say, again, that invisible barrier only exists because you say it exists and you decide, right? And so if we can start to break those things down, and then 2, just show up, be present. It's not a science. You only show up in the best capacity you can. So it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. So be present. And our organization, again, what I'm most excited about is the opportunity to increase a community of people who are showing up, even if they, know that they won't be perfect at it.
Awesome. Thanks, Jordann. Bri, how about you?
Sorry, that was longer than later.
That's okay.
Sorry. I get so passionate.
Jordann stole what I wanted to say, because I know we say it all the time, but I really think like the biggest thing that I did learn is the idea of being present, not perfect. Like, just be there, be open to the change, like know that you might not know the answers, like by being there, by showing up, by learning along the way, and just like being transparent and finding out what your friend, your family member, whoever it may be you're supporting needs. You will learn and grow along the way. And also, like, when you Google, you now have Be Present to give you some answers too. It's like, check out our stuff. That didn't used to exist. And I think it's so helpful. And that's why we put that information out there. So I really think that's like the biggest thing, is like, just be there, just make the time, find the time. It doesn't need to be perfect. This perfectly laid out, beautiful open day that you planned all these things. If you can do that, that's amazing, and it will make them feel really special. But if you can even just show up for a little bit, or FaceTime for a little, whatever that looks like, is really, really important. And with Be Present, I'm really excited about the tools and the tips and advice that we give and share based on our experiences, but mostly based on the experiences of other people in the cancer community that we talk to and that are going through these things too. It's a really shared experience and shared connection, and everyone has their own experience with it. And we know that social support is really important to the cancer journey. And I didn't know that when Kirsten was going through it, but now, like, I know how important it is to have that social support and how bad, that social isolation is for cancer patients. So yeah, I'm excited that we're, trying to improve that.
Yeah. All right, Kelly, you get to wrap it up.
All right. Well, Jordann and Bri just pretty much said everything, and I completely agree with both of them. I would just add too, like, well, the whole idea of being present is definitely like the biggest thing that has stuck with me, and learning also how to become present in the future too. Like now learning from that experience, like looking back on, like we said, like all of our regrets, like all you can do is at this point is learn from that. And so just being yourself with those people and everyone around you, and just embracing life, because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow or what tomorrow brings, the saying says, but it's true. Like you don't. So I think that's why it is so extremely important to just be in real life and being present with other people. So I'm super grateful that we do have our organization now, and we can bring together this community of people that are supporters of supporters, or people that are like us and who had someone diagnosed that was super close with them, or a family member, or whatever it might be. And how you can kind of hopefully navigate this journey a little bit better. But yeah, so I'm super excited what Be Present has in store, and to continue to grow in our community and help everybody out. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, ladies. I think you all summed it up pretty well. I think the bottom line is that the supportive friends are a huge untapped resource. And especially when we think about like how hard it has been for the medical professionals with COVID, it really, the weight that has been bared by all of the health professionals is so immense. And we all have the skills to do what's needed. We just need to get out of our own way. And so hopefully by the tips and tools and strategies, and just knowing that everybody else is struggling with the same stuff, hopefully all of that brings you to a place where you just kind of lean into all of the awkward and all of the difficult aspects of it, because at the end of the day, you know that what you are doing has an impact for that person and will make their day better, and cumulatively will make their week and forever and however long they need it. And that's really what it's all about, just being authentic to yourself. Don't change. They loved you before, they need to still love you for who you are. So just show up. Okay, well, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much, Bri, Kelly, and Jordann, for being so vulnerable with your conversations. Like I said, I know that some of the topics were difficult to talk about, and I really appreciate you sharing, because I think for those that are listening, it's really helpful to hear that other people are going through the same things, and understanding maybe that, giving a little bit more space and room to feel those feels is an okay thing to do. So thank you so much for all of you sharing. Thank you to our audience, for those that are here tonight and joined us and stayed up late. For those on the East Coast, I really appreciate all of you. And for Kirsten's friends that showed up tonight, Morgan, I see you out there. Thank you very much for being here tonight as well. It really means a lot. And we can't do what we do without all of you supporting us. So glad you joined us tonight. We will send you the replay. If you want to check out more of what Be Present has to offer, either follow us on social or check out our website, which is how you found us for the webinar. But thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night, and be present, not perfect.
Thank y'all.
Bye.